starts now.
New developments tonight in a First Alert 6 investigation of an Iowa roofing company that swindled an 89-year-old man in Omaha.
The owner appeared in court on a criminal charge. Our Mike McKnight was there too. Here's this First Alert 6 follow-up.
After paying more than $12,000 to DRJ of Eastern Iowa for roof repairs in August 2024, Herbus Melanakis says the storm chaser was in the wind for months, and to hire someone else, he needed his money back.
To pay for what I fixed, I put on my credit card and everything. Yeah, for a long time I was wondering if I'll get it or not.
He did, after our First Alert 6 investigation led to the arrest of the roofing company owner Joshua Peterson, who paid a refund to Herberts through the clerk of the district court.
So this is full restitution. Is this justice to you?
Yes, it is, definitely.
Not to the Douglas County attorney, who didn't drop the case, but agreed to a lesser felony charge.
Did you want to say anything at all, Josh?
Peterson entered a no contest plea to felony attempted theft by deception.
My client believed that the most important thing in this case was making restitution to the victim, which he did months ago. And although my client believes culpability for this should have been shared with his business partners, he's willing, as the owner of the company, to take responsibility for what happened here.
Peterson will be sentenced July 2nd. Peterson's attorney is hopeful that by showing the judge restitution has been paid to Herberts, his client is a good candidate for probation. But because his client told police he would pay him back right away and didn't, that could factor in on the sentence. Herberts turns 90 in a month, and the restitution gives him something to celebrate.
Thank you a million times, because without you, I wouldn't have gotten a dime.
In South Omaha, Mike McKnight, First Alert 6.
Douglas County Attorney Don Klein tells us that restitution did not erase the crime because Peterson didn't pay it until after he got arrested and charged. That happened last December, about 16 months after the victim paid the roofer.